y'all, it's Jess.
I'm Benjamin.
And this is Roots and Refuge Farm. I was recently talking to my friend Sarah over at Living Traditions Homestead, and she said you should do a video telling people what plants survive cold weather. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. I was planning on doing a tour after the freeze, so I figured I would show you what plants survive cold weather. It's now, we've had a hard freeze for the last 3 nights, so the garden is a pretty good illustration of what can survive the cold. So let's go have a tour of our half-dead garden. Oh, Kitten George, there he goes. He just ran through here like a crazy kitten. Hey, Kitten George. Sweet boy. So just a few days ago, the garden was in full splendor with the fall colors, and now it is definitely not so much. You can see the marigolds are still on their way out. They've still got a little bit of color on them. I began planning for this time of year in about August in my zone. Just about 10 weeks before the first frost, I'll start thinking about the plants that I want to be growing in my garden that can survive the cold weather. Some things aren't direct sown until just a few weeks before, and some things need to be started inside in August or so. This year, my garden is a little bit sparse right now because we went through a loss in September that I was not doing a whole lot of planning in the garden, and then we also had an issue with our chickens free ranging, and so they scratched up a lot of the small things I had planted, like radishes and some different things. So I do have some things growing though. What I'll be doing today after shooting this video and kind of showing you guys the aftermath of the freeze is all these dead plants are going to be coming out. They'll be going into the compost if they were healthy. Some of them had a little bit of blight, in which case they'll be burned. And I will be putting down nice thick layers of mulch where those plants were to get the soil covered and ready for the next few freezing months. Now, these were pepper plants, and obviously they didn't fare very well, nor did the marigolds. But if you'll notice here, the radishes are still looking pretty good. Several of these are about ready to be harvested. They can withstand pretty cold temperatures. Right behind him, you'll notice that the peas are just fine. Peas can also withstand pretty cold temperatures, especially once they get good and mature like this. So the zinnias and the basil just completely bowed out as soon as they got cold for the first time. Do y'all remember my beautiful pink zinnias? This is them after just a few nights of frost. I actually put up a devotional yesterday, and I shot that devotional the morning after our first hard freeze. We actually hadn't had a night lower than 40 degrees, and then all of a sudden we had a cold front come in and it went down to 22, I think, that first night. And the garden is actually beautiful in that devotional, even though it was like 26 degrees outside when I shot it, because everything was still frozen. And so it was just kind of like captured for one last shining moment of beauty and color. And after that, you know, I mean, as the day went on and it thawed out, everything began to wilt really hard, and within another 24 hours it was all sagging and black and having lost its color. So, but that morning I thought, well, I want to take advantage of having one more opportunity to shoot something in the colorful garden. So that's why I sat out here and froze my butt off the whole time, because I wanted to catch the garden in its splendor for my last opportunity to do it. You wanted me to show them that? I'm making some video of it. So these are the collards, obviously completely unfazed by the cold weather. They've got some ice on them right now, and they are completely fine. So this is a great thing to plant. Now the thing is that if you don't get it to the stage that it's big enough by the time it freezes, it just might not grow much more. So these are okay right now, but we'll just see how much more they grow. Yeah. We have pretty warm days with these cold nights, so maybe we'll still get some growth out of these. Same thing with these cabbages. I'm gonna tear out the marigolds here and maybe put some sort of cover over these so I can maybe get a little more growth. These were completely ravaged by bugs. I'll just pull those out and take them to my pigs or my chickens. because at this point, with it being as cold and the daylight hours getting as short, I don't know that those are going to be able to recover from that and grow anything that we can actually eat. Here, the sugar magnolia tendril peas are doing just fine. I think we'll have just a little bit of an experiment to see how far into the freezing weather these grow. I will tell you that many things, the flavor is just much improved by a nice frost. And peas are one of those things. They're just so much sweeter after they've been frozen. I'm telling you, like, it's a completely different thing. These exact peas off of this exact plant had a little bit of bitterness to them, but now they just taste amazing. And there are other things that really improve after being frost kissed. Things like kales and lettuces, they lose all their bitterness after they've been touched by frost. Radishes are not nearly as pithy and woody as they are in the warmer weather. You know, after they've lived through a frost. And a lot of these things actually can handle temperatures down to about 15 degrees, but they do start struggling when you get to that point. You can provide some sort of cover for them though that will keep them in that 15-degree range, and they can survive temperatures even lower than that. Do you want to go inside? Are your hands too cold? I've had some people ask me recently, like, what do you do in places like Minnesota where you're dealing with like negative 40-degree winters? I don't know this because I've never even been there, so I don't really know. I'm a Southern girl born and raised, and this is the only place I've ever really gardened is in the South. You know, here I've done some containers in Knoxville when I lived up there, and I've lived down in Texas, which was obviously warmer than here. But my guess is if you're wanting to grow food throughout the winter in these places that get in extreme cold, that you're probably going to have to do it in a greenhouse or inside. I can't imagine that there's anything that would grow in negative temperatures, you know, without some sort of supplemental heat. So I've got to have my little tote greenhouse that I'll show you here in just a second. And for me, they do pretty well, but you know, our coldest temperatures in like the dead of winter, we might get down to like 3 or 4 degrees maybe in the coldest days of the winter. But for us, on average, our night temperatures are maybe in the teens, and our day temperatures at the coldest are maybe in like the high teens or 20s, and that's really cold for us. So this is my only experience in growing, so that's all I really know about. There's the cucumber plant.
Where?
Right there in front of you. That's the cucumber plant. Now, that one was already struggling pretty hard with the night temperatures getting in the high 30s, low 40s. And so, of course, it kicked the bucket the very first time it froze. Same thing with these runner beans. They couldn't handle the cold temperatures. This whole bed is pretty much marigolds and some peppers. There are a few pea plants there, which they're doing just fine, so I'll leave those and I'll pull all this other stuff out. More beautiful peas doing just fine. Here's the cucamelon, obviously just another form of cucumber, which cannot tolerate cool weather at all. Another thing that will remain in this bed is this little peacock kale. This is actually kind of more of an ornamental kale. You can eat it. It's an F1 hybrid. I just bought this plant at a nursery because I thought it was pretty. So that will still be here, and that and the peas are going to be the only thing that are left over on this side of the garden. The purple beans here, beans are very frost tender. They can't live and when it gets cold. More zinnias. All of these are going to be pulled out. This I wasn't actually sure about. This is marjoram. Actually, I didn't know if the marjoram would withstand the frost. So this was just kind of an experiment for me, and turns out it did just fine. I don't know how long it'll live, but it looks really good and healthy. And I'm sure once I pull all these zinnias out and the marjoram has more sun, that it will probably actually grow and spread a little bit more. Here I've got a little bit of Paris Island lettuce, which is obviously just fine. Lettuces do really well in cold temps. And this is really neat. That's just a little pansy, which pansies actually bloom 3 freezing weathers. So if Kitten George doesn't kill it, go on Kitten George, I'll have a little bit of color for a while longer. Don't dig up my pansies, boy. Now this bed I planted entirely with the intention of covering it. I need to get it covered. I wasn't sure after that really hard freeze if it was going to be okay, but everything in it is just fine. And I want to cover this bed to see if I can keep these things going all throughout the winter and into the really hard weather. Now the interesting thing about a lot of these cold hardy varieties, like these are just like green and purple cabbages. There's some radishes here, some like broccoli rabe. There's kale down on the end and pansies all down the middle. All of these things are completely fine. They have now been frozen down to 22 degrees. They have ice on them right now. Yeah, you can pinch some off and eat it if you want. It's cabbage leaves. I don't know how much you'll like that. They're all fine. Now, they might start to struggle if they had like a lot of ice dumped on them, if the temperature didn't warm up, if they stayed like below 30 for multiple days. I don't know, honestly. I have had kale grow all winter where we came out and we were knocking snow off the top of it to pick it to eat. So I know that it can handle a lot and it tastes so much better, but I still want to build some sort of greenhouse cover over the top of this bed just to give these things a better chance at longevity. These beds here in the middle, which were one of the most beautiful spots in the garden just a couple of weeks ago, there's nothing planted in these for winter, and so they were really full with stuff that was surviving into the fall, like pink-eyed peas and runner beans. The holy basil, if y'all remember that, was all here, and now it's all completely dead. So these will be completely cleaned out and mulched and waiting for spring to shine again. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit and come back over here. So you can see more dying marigolds, more cabbages that just look completely beautiful, even though they've got ice piled on their leaves. Those will do just fine. Even though there's lots of dead marigolds that need to come out, there are quite a few things in here that will remain.
Ooh, cabbage.
Here I've got some of my favorite curly blue kale. It's one of my favorite kales. I've got some red Russian cabbage. It's pretty small. It kind of got a late start, so I don't know how much it'll do. I might get some sort of cover over this to see if I can get it to grow anymore with a little more heat in the day. Now remember my beautiful zinnia patch, my first big one. It's no longer with us. That volunteer tomatillo bit the dust. It looks like the only thing we're gonna have in this bed is, again, the peas, which are healthy and beautiful. They're about 8 feet tall right now and covered in purple blossom. And I've got this one calendula here, which will do just fine. Calendula can grow in freezing temperatures. And here, I'm pretty sure this is parsley. I think I kind of vaguely remember planting that, but I'm not really sure. So yeah, it obviously is fine in the cold though. This is a square bed right here next to the collards that was intentionally planted for winter, and it is completely doing great. Cauliflower and some more lettuce. In fact, I think I'll give this lettuce a try. This variety, look, it's got ice on it. I have to shake off the ice. This variety is called Red Sail. It's really soft, tender leaves. It's got a really strong flavor. George, why? So that's pretty good. The top leaves that are newer are definitely more tender. The bottom leaves have a little bit stronger flavor and are a tiny bit bitter, but they were growing when it was warmer. So I'm curious to see how this does into the cold weather and see if it's one that I really like. I liked it when it was really young, but the flavor is definitely getting a little more pronounced. It's kind of peppery. It's okay. Some people would probably love it. They might love that flavor. I like sweet lettuces. So we'll see how it pans out. So the ashwagandha plant did not appreciate the freeze at all. We actually took some clippings of this and I gave it to our friends Ben and Andrea at VW Family Farms, and they were going to try to sprout some clippings and grow them in their hydroponic greenhouse. I'm going to trim this back pretty heavily and just cover the branches that remain in mulch until spring in hopes of, you know, preserving the roots and hopes that it'll come back. I think it will. I repotted some of the tomato plants. This one I did not. Tomatoes are very frost tender, as you can see. One night under freezing and your tomatoes are gone. Here's some more marjoram that's obviously doing just fine. And these are rainbow chards. Now they're laying down, so I might see if I can get something to cover them up here like today. Maybe some more inverted plastic tubs, something I don't have to build or put a lot of time into, because I don't think they are liking these cold weathers very much. Now they can handle colder weathers, but I think these particular plants may just be a little young for it. Here are the arroz con pollo peppers after the freeze. Actually dug up one of these plants and sent it with Ben and Andrea to put in their greenhouse as well. So let's take a look at our little tub greenhouse. It's got some ice on top of it. Got so many questions about this on the other video, and I might need to just do a separate update video on it and answer some of those questions in a place that's a little easier to find. But I will go ahead and say here, a lot of people have asked me how cold of an area you can do this in. Like, can you do it in the negative degrees, like in places that get down to like negative 20, 30, 40? And I really don't know. I would think not. That would be my assumption, that things wouldn't grow in that cold, because I think more than anything, if you're dealing with a lot of snow and stuff, that the light would be really limited. I don't really know. I hope somebody will try it. I'm hoping to get some feedback of people trying this in different regions, because obviously I can only speak for my area, but it's growing really well here. Now, I see growth in this every day. However, it's not growing as fast as it would in the summer. These kind of things, salad greens, are ready to be eaten in like 3 or 4 weeks in the summer, and this has been going for 2 weeks. But they are growing, they are making progress. People have asked me how often to water it. I've only watered this thing like twice since I started it a couple of weeks ago, because it's not hot enough to evaporate a lot of the water, and there's just a lot of moisture inside this thing. So if your soil starts looking dry, like turning lighter colored, then water it, but otherwise don't. This was another surprise to me. I didn't know how the sweet alyssum would do. Obviously it withstands being frozen. That's nice to know if you're wanting something pretty in the garden during the cold time, that this is a plant that will grow. This broccoli plant, no issues with the cold. These are cabbages, but I don't know that they really had enough time to get going. Maybe with some cover they'll grow. More Paris Island lettuce, which is just fine. These beans, obviously not okay. All beans are frost tender. This is a buttercrunch lettuce, also just fine. Now the squash, very predictably, laid down as soon as it froze. It didn't even have to thaw to completely wilt. Squash is very frost tender. Someone recently brought up something in the comment section that I taught months ago when I was teaching about planning your fall garden, and that was that they learned in that video that winter squash is not a squash that grows in the winter. And most of you at this point will have figured that out if you planted winter squashes in any area that gets below 32 degrees, that they looked like this when you woke up. Winter squashes are squashes that store well. So you grow them in the summer and store them through the winter. The name is a little bit misleading because it might lead you to believe that you could actually grow them in cold temperatures. But all squash plants are going to die as soon as the temperatures drop. However, they are a great variety to grow in succession sowing and into the fall, because like with these, we were eating fresh squash off these plants last week. They did just fine until it got below 32 degrees, at which point they were gone. Time is another thing that I wasn't sure about. I just didn't know if it would do well into the winter, and it's obviously just fine. I don't know how how cold of temperatures thyme can withstand. But I'm really excited to see that it's done this well. I had uprooted some to move to the greenhouse just in case, because I use a lot of that in my fall cooking. Here are lettuces that we'll be eating on for a while now. Another couple of herbs that I just didn't know. I've always been under the impression that herbs are very frost tender things, and apparently I was wrong in that because this is lemon balm and peppermint, both of which are alive, and actually all the weeds that they were sharing their bed with have all laid down, and these are still going, so that's really nice to see. Here's a little tiny pak choi doing just fine. That's a cabbage, a brassica, so it does fine in the cold, as well as a purple sprouting broccoli. So here I've got some turnips, and they look about ready to pull. These greens, when I've woken up in the morning, have been laid almost flat. So I feel like they're probably struggling a little bit, but they perk back up as soon as the day warms up. However, the turnips, I pulled one to test it. They are getting to be a good size, so I'm probably going to go ahead and start harvesting these pretty soon. And I think I may share with you guys some turnip recipes. Kitten George is rubbing all over the trellis where my camera is propped, making it shake. One thing that you guys have asked me for really repeatedly is what to do with the harvest. And so I hear you, and I am going to start showing some things like what you can do. Some of these things I'll be trying for the first time. Like I found a really interesting turnip recipe that was a creamed turnip with recipe, and it's the roots cut up and the greens cooked in, and I thought we'll give it a try. My kids are pretty adventurous in giving things a try because they've learned that things can be pretty good. So I figured maybe we could try that recipe with some of these turnips and taste test it on the kids and see what they think. They'll be honest with you if it's not very good. But I do want to start sharing with you guys some of how we use things. I'm super simple in the kitchen because we do eat a lot of whole foods. I don't do a lot of like extensive recipes. Like for instance, I talk about like kale. When you hear a banging noise from the back of your farm where the goats are, it's always a curious thing. I don't hear any goats screaming, so hopefully no one's hurt. Well, they're fine. They were jumping on a junk pile. So, keeping things simple. You know, I talk about kale, and I say kale and eggs, and I've had a lot of people ask, like, how do you make that? And truly, I just saute an onion, rip up some kale, cook it until it wilts, and then put it on a plate, fry some eggs, and put it on top of it. Like, that's it. To me, it's very easy and basic, but for people who haven't tried it before, I understand it's like, oh, I would have never thought to do that. And I can eat a ton of kale that way. It's so good, and it's good for you. It's a good breakfast to eat. So I am going to start showing a little bit more of that around here because it truly is my heart to empower people to grow their own food. And I know a lot of people do the gardening part of it, but then get overwhelmed with the harvest. So I want to teach you how to use your harvest. Quit being a lion. Most everything else here are things that are no more. These peppers will all be pulled up. And there's a little bit of chard there and lettuce. Here, of course, are more peas, more lettuces, and here more beautiful flowers that are covered in ice and not dying, which makes me happy. And this walking stick kale, which I've been harvesting. I've harvested quite a few leaves off of that so far. It's very good. So here we have the garden. Half of it is now dead. You may notice I don't have any carrots growing. There are some growing in the kids' garden, and carrots do just fine in the winter. When it gets to the point that it's just freezing cold, they'll stop growing, but you can heap the mulch up over the top of them. The greens will die off, but you can essentially use your garden like carrot storage and come out and harvest them whenever you need to use them. Carrots were one of the things that my chickens scratched up. They scratched up a lot of carrots and radishes before we could get them contained. So that's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. We'll grow carrots in the spring. That's the wonderful thing about gardening, is if you miss your chance, there's always the next season. There's always going to be a next season, and you can always just pick back up and try again. So the garden is well into her slumber. I'll be pulling out this dead stuff and mulching really heavily here just sometime in the next few weeks. I'll probably wait till we have a relatively warmish day and come out and do it then when it's not miserable to be out here. As it breaks down in the garden over the winter, it's not hurting anything for it to be in there. It's just adding back to the soil. So yeah, that's it. Maybe later this week we'll take a look at what's going on in the greenhouse. I'm still kind of waiting to see if the plants I pulled out of the garden are going to do very well in there, but I am going to start some microgreens and do some salad greens and stuff in there over the winter. If you have any questions about, you know, other things that you didn't see in my garden that can live in the cold, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to get to those. I hope this helped you to kind of just have a visual of what can live in freezing temperatures. If you are living somewhere now and you're thinking, oh, could I start some of those things? Probably not. If it's already where you're having really freezing temperatures, if you're waking up to ice in the morning. The thing is that these things do okay once they're kind of established, but they don't germinate very well in the cold, and they're not going to grow a whole lot once they get to this point. They may grow some. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what they do. It just depends on the weather. If we have lots of overcast days, they're not going to grow a lot. If we have several sunny days where it's in the 40s or 50, we might still get some good growth out of them. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys walking through the garden with me today, and I hope this helped you. I bless you. Until next time.